All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain.
This one's going to be mostly fitness stuff, but we're going to do some cleanup from what we talked about last time. We're also going to do a part 2 for Wheel of Time. So if you're here for Wheel of Time, go ahead and skip to part 2 at this point. If you're here for everything, stay on board. Disclaimers, no medical advice. We are not telling you to or not to get a certain drug or any drug, or to take anything to treat any ailments you have. Even in our fitness advice, you are not a client of mine, and I do not have personal information about you. So consult your doctor or another fitness professional, or contact me and pay me, and I will go into further detail. But
except acid. Let's all take acid and get in sensory deprivation chambers because reality sucks.
That was not official medical advice. Though meditation is always recommended because it's good for you. However you do that, even if it's just 5 minutes. So do it 5 minutes a day, and it's better than doing it for an hour once a week. So, okay. So I wanted to bring up some stuff from what we talked about last time. So for those that were here last time, we talked about that study that was kind of a non-issue, even though it's being exploded in the media as the smoking gun. I think I titled that episode "Smoking Gun or Shooting Blanks," and it is mostly shooting blanks. And in fact, when we redid the math per how it should have been done, it actually shows a result the other way, which I hope people with more influence than us are doing that if they're not already banned from YouTube for it. I went through my saved videos, and there was a bunch already gone. So I wish it told you the title of which one was removed, because I can't remember, just based on order, which one that was. But yeah, so there's videos that I didn't even get to watch because they were already pulled from YouTube. But now that Elon Musk bought a majority share of Twitter, we'll see what cleans up there.
I love the troll move there, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but a couple of days before that was announced, he put up a Twitter poll asking if he should start his own social media company. And of course, this was already well in the works, because moves like this take lots of time. So
well, he posted today, he said this first Twitter board meeting is going to be lit, and attached to it was a picture of when he was smoking pot on Joe Rogan's show.
I would have rather he post a picture of his flamethrower, but whichever way you want to go there, Mr. Musk.
We'll see what happens. He owns 10%, almost 10% of the company now. They're like, we're happy to have him on our board. I'm like,
yeah,
you had no choice. Yeah, you had no choice. He owns you. So that's going to be interesting. But we talked about the study, and of course there was only so many hours in the day, so I hadn't read everything in it, but let's go back to it. Okay, so this was the study we had brought up last time. Effective early treatment, ivermectin. And what I went down to the bottom and got into funding, let's highlight that there. We got this FAST grants and Rainwater Charitable Foundation. So you always want to know where the money's coming from. So I was like, well, okay, those sound, harmless enough. So let's look at FAST grants.
As they often do.
Yeah. So we look at FAST grants, and I'm going through their website. So this is them right here, fastgrants.org. And who do we find down here? The Gates Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They seem to have their hands in everything, because remember the last time we talked about a study that poo-pooed on this not to be named drug. It was funded by Unitad, which is also part of the Gates Foundation.
Yeah, and if you go watch the part that we didn't think we could upload to YouTube, you will see
they wrote the conclusion.
you will see someone caught in a recording admitting that he was pressured to change that conclusion. And this is who he was pressured by.
Now the other company here, this Rainwater Charitable Foundation, had to look them up, and the other connection there is he apparently was really, really, really good friends with George W. Bush, who is also part of this whole World Economic Forum madness. So we've got two big funding connections to the WEF who benefit from everything that went wrong with COVID. In fact, they wrote a book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. It's like watching Austin Powers. He tells you the plan. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a really odd conspiracy theory, which is what it always gets labeled at by fact checkers in social media. How is it a conspiracy theory when they're saying the quiet part out loud?
speaking of conspiracy theories, Pfizer had to drop a bunch of docs again on the
Hmm.
first, because for those that remember, they tried to get 75 years to release their data from their random, quote unquote, randomized trials and everything leading up. But a judge said, no, you have to release it all within a year, and every month you have to release X amount to do that. And so April 1st was another dump of, I think it was 13,000 pages. But in those 13,000 pages, a lot of our conspiracy theories again were confirmed.
Hmm.
So, and then you sent me some studies that I haven't gotten to read yet. One from Stanford, and where was the other one from?
The other was just looking at the UK data.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they put out uh, da, 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 a vaccine surveillance report. So the UK has announced they're about to stop doing this, but they've been one of the best about putting data out there. And so it's looking at this data, because as we've grumbled about here, the reason we don't, when we're talking about COVID numbers, the reason we're usually using, Israel or the UK is because the US, the CDC, is terrible about putting out data. They'll put out raw numbers and then that's it.
No, they don't even do that anymore. They
Oh,
put
they don't
out
even do that anymore.
they put out their convoluted studies,
Okay.
and it's like, we're going to use this regressive logarithmic function to stratify the comorbidities of the hamsters that were
Yeah.
involved with the, yeah. And
No, I
it's,
th I think Israel a few months ago started to lessen what they were putting out there. But for a while, them in the UK were the best about, here are our cases, here are our hospitalizations,
mhm.
here are our deaths,
And it
and
was
then looking at those positive tests of what are breakthrough cases, what are unvaccinated, and all these other stratifications
well,
that you need to make conclusions.
we started vaccinating December of 2020, right? And May 1st, 2021, the CDC straight up changed their policy to not even track breakthrough cases unless they
Hmm.
were hospitalizations. So they're throwing out numbers at you that such and such is down. I'm like, we don't even know the denominator.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're not even tracking it. And then they release a paper that used a third party tracking system from one state. And I'm like, well, why'd you pick Kentucky? Because probably the other 49 states didn't give you the number you wanted. Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's speculating, but that's all we can do because we don't know the other numbers, and they didn't even track them. So I'm like, why isn't this a number we're actually tracking? So that's my big beef with them. But when it comes to this last document drop, of course, Pfizer knew all along natural infections the best way, the best immunity you're going to get. They knew that from the beginning. They knew that from their trials. It was as good or better because early days of trial, I mean, obviously the injection works really well until it wanes. They also knew that you have a huge drop in your overall immunity the first week after getting the injection. So a lot of people were not given this information publicly because the CDC, FDA, or none of them said, hey, after you get this injection, maybe that's the time to quarantine because you're more susceptible to get sick from anything, a cold, flu. That might be why we had a huge spike in RSV, all of these things, because your immune system's working hard to adjust. Duh, I've been saying this forever because that's how immune systems work. Everybody used the novel word with coronavirus
Hmm.
to make it seem like everything was going to be new. It's like, no, all these rules apply. The novel part was your body's never seen this disease before, so it has trouble fighting it. And so none of this is news, but it is news because they've been saying the opposite this whole time. What was the other one? Oh, stratified risk. Maybe age matters. This whole myocarditis thing that we had a video banned for. When I brought up age stratification.
Using they just the CDC's own, every source you cited, every source you showed, we went through, you talked about, every one of those documents was from the CDC.
Yeah, and I linked it. I didn't do anything other than that. And so, but now Pfizer documents say, oh, they used 50 and under. So that's even more broad than what the CDC had, because the CDC had 30 and under. And the difference between 30 and 50 is massive. So if 50 and under gives you this risk reward profile, just imagine what 16 years old does. Because remember, it was a scale like this. Yeah. It was exponential increase. It wasn't linear as you got older. And especially in that adolescent group, it really spiked because you're a developing body at that point.
This is why I've been griping that I think there is, you know, and obviously we're not lawyers, but just as a layperson thinking about this logically, I think there's a strong legal case to be made that the emergency use authorization protections that Pfizer and Moderna have are not valid because they have committed fraud. Because they knew all of these things and they hid it. Again, the analogy I've been using is this is why the big tobacco companies were sued nearly out of existence by the federal government, because it was shown with documentation that they knew and hid and suppressed data of how harmful their products were.
Well, here's the catch to that. What did the people who approved the authorization know? We don't know that. This is FOIA request. This is public knowledge now. What did the people actually making the decisions know? Which is not good for them either way, because they either knew and still authorized it without telling the public, or they didn't get the data they needed to make the decision.
Well, this is something I've been meaning to order Scott Atlas's book. So I've heard someone talking about Scott Atlas's book. For anyone who doesn't know, Scott Atlas was a highly regarded Stanford MD and PhD in this stuff, and he was brought in.
He's also one of the names you are not to discuss.
Exactly. He was brought into the Trump team to work on this task force. And from what I have heard of his book, they didn't care that the task force was making political decisions, not scientific decisions, not medical decisions.
Well, the booster shot vote, they didn't even convene the scientific panel. They bypassed them to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're in the age category that is vulnerable to this disease, the evidence suggests that it's probably the best choice to get that extra bump in immunity. But again, age stratification matters. And that's what I've been arguing the whole time. Everybody's like, oh, you're one of those ivermectin guys, or you're one of those anti-vaxxers or whatever. It's like, no, there's just discussions around this that should be happening. Age matters. Risk reward ratios matter. Previous infection matters. All of these things matter, but they don't sell as many doses.
Transparency matters too. Is all right.
Matters. Yes, absolutely.
You know, the people, you know, as you say, the science people that are just decrying anyone who's asking questions as some sort of anti-vaxxer or, you know, moron or whatever. No, you people aren't being transparent. You people are repeatedly being caught in lies. You people are repeatedly, I mean, for crying out loud, I think one of the starkest examples of this is when Rand Paul, when the documents had been leaked or FOIA'd, and Rand Paul had the documents and was questioning Fauci about gain of function. And we have it here. We have the documentation about uh, um, the NIH through another group, then went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and was funding gain of function research. And Fauci said, "No, we didn't we didn't fund that." How do you? And Rand Paul laid out the definition of gain of function, and Fauci said, "No, that's not what we were doing." We have the documents, and you're just saying, "Nope, no, you don't." You're being a 5-year-old that just, "No, you didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did." How do you expect people to trust you?
Well, and then they go and change their definition on their own website.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. Now, the last nugget, and this is where you sent me those studies. I'm gonna have to read them.
Mhm.
The Stanford study you sent me, that was also in the April 1st dump, that they knew this was a possibility.
Mhm.
That would give a tease to the gist of it. Something about the spike protein in the mRNA vaccine may be damaging to
Yeah.
the blood vessels in the same way that the actual virus is, which is again what we've been talking about this whole time. And it may be even worse than actually getting the virus. And again, this is allegedly in this study, where I'll read it and see what everything is about it. But that apparently was considered as a possibility in their, I think it was in their consent forms. They had to list things that could be possible side effects of it, and so this is stuff they knew from the beginning, and Stanford might be confirming it, and now they're confirming they knew it was a possibility, and yet we were still told, what are the words safe and effective, and they don't even define what those two terms mean.
Mhm.
So it's just a frustrating sequence of events, and we're going to look back in history, I think, unless some people gain power that rewrite the history, but we're going to look back and say, how stupid were we during this whole thing?
I hope so, because I really think, to your point, the only way we wouldn't do that is if the powers that be continue to be the powers that be and continue to just cover everything up.
Mhm.
And so we'll kind of leave this at that. And I'm just going to tease that sometime soon here, we're going to do a deep dive into these documents after we've looked at them some more. And I'm going to let the crazy voices out of my head. And I'm just going to, the crazy voices. Well, let me just say this. Go look up what transhumanism is.
Well, and this is really tough because I did watch a video that when the first Pfizer dump came out, all the guy did was read from their documents, and it was about the side effects, and it was the numbers. And actually, one of the things I did bring up where they excluded the doses, right? So we didn't know the denominator in the ratio, and all he did was read straight from the document. And I watched it, and I think it was maybe 14 hours later that video was taken down. So it was control of information.
Mm-hmm.
As usual, I'm behind on backing things up on Rumble, but I'll back everything up on Rumble. And one of these days, maybe I need to go ahead and tie down a domain name for us on the interwebs, so we can have our own website. But
All right. Well, that's enough old men yelling at the clouds about things.
so let's
Now
talk
we
some
have some.
fitness.
Yes.
So I actually got a request from someone who watches on a topic, sort of a request. We were talking about time and time spent in the gym, and it was life happened, so she didn't get the gym time she needed to do her workout, and she sent me a workout, and it was overall good. The volume was good, the exercise selection was good, sets and reps were good for her goals. The problem was it took forever to get through, because it was written in a way that I mean, to get the volume, you were there for an hour and a half at least. And if you want to do any cardio on top of that, even more. And so a lot of times these things look great on paper, but for all practical purposes, we got lives, right?
Right.
You know, we've got to have our job. We got to have our family time. We can't just sit in the gym for 3 hours every day. And so I said, wow, I'm gonna have to talk about program density. And
Which is something you kind of alluded to last time when we were looking at one of your programs.
mhm.
And because you'll see there in those programs of Sam's that he'll have a main exercise and then he'll have a couple of other things.
Well, and you had a question almost at exactly the same time. What should I pair with my
Yeah,
hip
yeah,
thrusts? And that's where the density comes in handy,
yeah.
because what we're talking about, so density in programming is just like the definition of the word is used in everything else. How much do you fit in one small space, right? So 50 pounds of feathers is not lighter than 50 pounds of iron. It's just less dense, right? So it takes up a lot more space than the 50 pounds of iron. uh, so when we talk about workouts, that's the same thing. So I've got my volume load, which is sets times reps times weight. How much of that do I fit into the time frame I want to fit? Now, just like in economics, there's no freebies. There's only trade-offs. And so what we try to do from a programming standpoint is to get the most density into the workout without sacrificing as much as possible when it comes to intensity, which is how much you can do, or the quality of work. Are you getting sloppy because you're tired or whatever? And so there's so much that goes into it. Now, where this doesn't work very well is when you do as well as when you do strict body part splits. Because if I'm working chest and triceps today, like you would see in a bodybuilding split, you can't do back-to-back chest exercises or back-to-back tricep exercises with like a bench press, because your bench press will suffer from what you do. So if I did bench press and then tricep presses, the next set of bench is going to not be as good because my triceps are toast. So it does not work very well with body part splits unless you just couple your mobility work with the exercises. So I don't know. Let's kind of go through real world example. We'll just kind of make one as we go. So first question.
Let's talk about what I'm doing here.
Well, I was going to say, I'll say first question I would ask is how many times are we training a week?
Okay.
Yeah, how many times are we training?
All right. So I've transitioned from a high volume to I'm trying to focus more on endurance. So I'm doing 4 times a week, upper lower antagonist supersets.
Okay,
so let's explain
upper
what
lower
that
split.
means.
That's simple. Okay, so this is exactly how it sounds. One day you're going to do upper body, so everything from the waist up, and the next day you're going to do lower body. And now we'll get into the antagonist supersets as part of it. But so I'm going to do legs one day. We're just going to talk about the simple leg day. Now I could do a set of squats and then do my, if you're working on endurance, probably just a minute rest, then do another set of squats and then minute rest and then another set of squats. Or like you said, we can pair things up. So,
so I'm in a hurry. So I'm going to do heavy squats and then heavy deadlifts right back to back, right?
No. So this is where it gets trickier. So
yeah,
a back squat doesn't pair with a whole lot of things very well, right? Because it's so systemically challenging, right? You got that weight on your back, your core is working, your shoulders are working to hold it up, your butt's working, your quads are working, your hamstrings are working. There's not a whole lot we can pair with that in just a strict upper lower split. But if I switch that to a front squat and we get to be a more quad dominant exercise, now I can pair that with something like a hip thrust, weighted bridge. And so now I can hit the quads really hard. Now your glutes are working, obviously, you're still doing a squat, but not as hard. So it's more quad dominant. And then I'm doing something that's almost all butt.
Yeah. And not nearly as core intensive as those standing exercises, the squats and the deadlifts.
So if you pair things up like that, you can get a good match. Then
so now
so we get squats and hip thrust pair.
Well, just quickly, and then obviously the point here with program density is instead of doing squats with the rests in between and then resetting for hip thrust with the rest in between. I've squished those two together, so I'm saving myself a lot of time.
And then also you see a lot of people go through their main lifts and then do like a mobility circuit or a shoulder circuit or some sort of, I'm trying to be healthier kind of thing at the end. Well, that's where you can include that. So I can do my front squat, my hip thrust back to back, and then do like a hip flexor stretch. And so now I don't have to do that at the end of my workout because I'm already working on my mobility. And also that counts towards my rest time. So if I, did 10 front squats, 10 hip thrusts, and then 10 in and out of the stretch, that gives me about a minute rest, and I can go back to those front squats. And the secondary goal here is we're actually getting some cardio, right? Because you're never stop moving. So this, again, we're just doing a lower body split here. So I've got to pair my exercises right: quad dominant, butt dominant, stretch, repeat, however many sets you got. So now we're going to go to the next thing. Well, I probably want to switch those up so I can focus on something. So now we'll do something like an RDL, right? So we're still working legs, and it's posterior dominant, so butt and hamstrings. And we could pair that with like a leg extension. So I can do my RDLs in a leg. I prefer like a sissy squat, but something that's almost all quads. My main exercise works a little bit of everything, but it's glutes and hamstrings dominant. And then I can hit a quad exercise back to back, and then we can do maybe a seated cradle or something as a stretch. So it's quad, glute, stretch, number of sets. Then we move on, glute, quad, stretch, and we keep going. And if we pair those up right, we can keep a high intensity on what we're working out the whole time. And then I love leg circuits. I just hit a leg circuit at the end where you go from like a lunge to a lateral squat to a single leg RDL to a pistol squat, and then an ab exercise. And now we just fit a shit ton into an hour. Right. I think the last time I brought up a program, it actually looked a lot like that, wasn't it? When I brought up the upper lower.
Yeah. And I think I like the leg circuit because you put a lot of those on your leg day programs, and you can get a lot in. Basically you're finishing off, you're pulling out the last of the of the energy that you have in those muscles, and you're able to keep the work going because you're shifting the focus around the leg of which muscles are actually dominant in that movement. And that's why you'll only do, say, 8 reps of this, and now we're switching with no rest to do 8 reps of this, and now we're switching to do 8 reps of this, because we've just moved the focus around the leg.
Yeah, this is the one we brought up when we were talking about in our last talk about fitness, where we just, main lift, like I said, not much pairs well with a real squat or a real deadlift because they're so systemic. But then we move down, the bridge pairs with the knee extensions, or the front squat pairs with the hamstring curl. And then we got this circuit at the end. So this right here, if you really push and don't get on your phone between sets and etc., this is like 45 minutes of work right here. And then we got a little bit of some really rough abs and a little bit more butt stuff at the end. So you can do a quick warm up, work into your squats, pair up, circuit, some abs and some more glutes. And this is, if you take your time, this is an hour tops. And look how many sets and reps we get in. So this is a very dense program right here. Then we move on to upper body. We do kind of the same thing the other day. So the other way. So now we can pair a little bit more, because bench press is a multi-joint exercise, but it's strictly a push. It's not a systemic exercise where you're core loaded and stuff. So we can pull a posterior exercise in there, which I love, face pulls. They're great for your posture. And then we do the opposite. We do a pulling exercise, and I put the abs in here, but you can also do a light pressing exercise back to back with that. And then again, antagonist, incline press, incline row, opposite motions. You can push really hard on those 12, and you can push really hard on those 12 because they don't they work against each other. So you don't have to worry about that. And then a little bit of, beach muscle stuff here. So this is an example of how you can make a program more dense, where again, these traditional programs, you would do your bench, then you would do your chin-ups, then you would do your incline press, and then you would do your rows, and then you would do some of this stuff. And it takes about an hour and a half versus all of this, you could probably get through in 45 minutes at a high intensity. That's the key. You can do as much as you can for 10 without suffering because of what you're doing after that. So that's what we talk about when we talk about program density. Again, doesn't work as well for body part splits because I can't do a bicep exercise, then do another bicep exercise and come back to the first one with the same intensity.
So if you want to increase the work in a program like that, you're going to have to look for rehab, prehab type things that you can do for active rest. We mentioned that last time, about active rest versus just standing around for 60 seconds while you recover before you start that next set. That's another way to increase that workload without overworking a particular muscle or muscle group.
Well, and people are like, well, what do I substitute here, or what stretches do I do? Here's a good way to think about it. Think of, so we just did the incline press, incline row. They don't affect each other because they're opposing motions. Well, if you're looking for what stretch to do, think of the movement you're doing. So easy example is the deadlift or RDL. You're extending the hip, right? So you're standing up, you're going from a bent position to a straight position. So everything that makes it hard to be straight is what you can stretch, because that's what's working against you. So that's why I said a hip flexor stretch in there, because hip flexors are working against you while you're doing the hip extension. So that's the easy way to go about it. So if I'm doing a rowing motion, a pulling motion, well, I can put in a pec stretch, which we should be doing all the time because we sit at desks all day and in front of the TV or whatever, and that pulls you into a bad posture. So I can put a pec stretch in there and then row, and the stretch isn't affecting my row one bit because it's an antagonist. It's actually helping my row. It might be enhancing it because I'm not fighting myself. So,
and Sam just locked up. Wonder if that's just on.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. You're back. I don't know if that was just on my end or what.
It might be just on your end because you never locked up on my end.
Okay.
Either way, if it's locked up, sorry about that, guys. But program density, again, trying to fit more in the hour, and it's all about the mixture, right? Doesn't work well with body part splits, but it does work great with movement splits, which is what we usually do.
Now we've talked about this before, but you need to find that balance of not getting to the point of overwork. I've ranted about this before, but the ladies in the box gym who just walk around and never take the freaking glute band off. Okay. There is such a thing as, well, overwork is the layman's term. I just brain farted on the, dose response would be the technical term if you want to look that up, and get into that. But this is what we've ranted about of, as I said, when I was first starting out and I was looking at your programs as a guideline, or you given me some programs, and I asked, okay, well, I've heard you complain about CrossFit. What's the difference between this and CrossFit, or a boot camp type thing, which is, go, never stop moving, and you're doing complex multi-joint movements practically all the time. And this is much more stratified and thought out than that. It's, as you were explaining, okay, well, we're doing this kind of complex system exercise that taxes lots of parts of your body. Okay, well, then we do not pair that with another exercise that does that, even if the prime movers are a different muscle group. So you need to think about that as you're pairing these things together.
Yeah, and it bothered me for a while because a lot of times you you wonder how they came up with these, then they named all their workouts after girls, and then they named them all after military guys, which is cool. But it was like, how did you come up with this exercise selection other than this is really hard?
Mhm.
And there's consequences to that. There was a local competition here, and they did it outside on the concrete, and they put the racks out there and everything. And I'm trying to remember the order, but it was something to the degree of 10 pull-ups, 15 deadlifts, 20 toes to bar, which you're hanging from the bar and you're bringing your feet up to your hands. And it just kept going. And I'm like, it's a grip, 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 grip. And lo and behold, someone did a toes to bar, lost their grip, and fell on their neck on the concrete, from an 8-foot rack, because the infinity racks are about 8 foot tall. And no shit, Sherlock, this is going to happen because you're gripping. Yeah, Khalipa or one of these elite CrossFit guys or gals can do that, but your average, I just want to get out and have a fun day competitor, which is what those citywide games and stuff were, you're gonna get a bad result. There was another one where they were doing plate burpees. And plate burpee is where you do a burpee and you jump onto a weight plate and then you jump off. And so this is the part of the competition. It was a whole shit ton of those. And then you ran a 400 meter, which they marked off in the parking lot. And then you did a shit ton of those. You ran a 400 meter, and the person who got through the most rounds won. And someone did their plate burpees and went to sprint, and their legs didn't work because they're tired, and they face planted on the concrete, lost every tooth in the front.
Ow.
Good job. Thanks, Career Point. And so it's like, again, what do you expect to happen? You're doing complex movements to 100% fatigue every time. Someone's going to get hurt. But I think we kind of derailed there on our conversation.
Well,
but yeah, that's the difference.
Only a little bit.
It's programming, right?
Mm.
It's not just shit thrown at the fan and seeing what, or at the wall and seeing what sticks, right?
Yeah.
So
when you look at something like those CrossFit workouts or the boot camp kind of things that you've complained about, if you're on paper layperson just looking at that, you'll think, oh, well, that's a dense workout because that's a lot of work. Okay, well, the work can't be garbage work.
The key word is a plan. Every plan is better than no plan. Now, there are better plans than others, but every plan is better than no plan. Let's look at strength. So now I've got a different split, and I need to format this one to the other one because I like the other format better. But so look at day one. We still got squats as the main exercise, and we're using a proven set and rep method, the 5-3-1 method. But how do I do that and still get my training days in? Because like we talked about, I think last time, twice a week is about optimal for a natural lifter, right? But it's hard to get twice a week when you're working maximum strength, right? So what I do here to get my density, this is a warm up here. That's the warm up, lift specific warm up. Then I do my strength sets. Now, obviously there's warm up sets there. I'll probably do a set of 10, set of 8, maybe another set of 8, and then work into my 5 rep max, 3 rep max. And then 1+ means I put what I think I can do for 1 and then go as many reps as I can. But now we add a little bit of something that's not going to affect my squat, right? That warms me up for the next part, because now I've got 10 rep max rows. So squats, rows, and a auxiliary lift for the squats. And then, as usual, a leg circuit at the end with some abs. So then the next day, well, we can't do squats and we can't do rows because I just maxed out on squats the day before. Rows was moderate intensity, but we can do some bench, and then we can work those glutes a little bit, because you can work glutes up to 6 times a week because they're awesome muscles. And then a little bit of support work. So I got my bench, I got my vertical push, a little tricep. And now day 3, which would be that Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, day off. That Thursday, now we can come in and do a reverse pyramid on on deadlifts, do some more pulling exercises and some, whoops, don't do that. And then some conditioning at the end. And I love this split because then we come in on Friday and do a total body circuit. So we hit everything twice a week without overtaxing anything. But again, every single one of those workouts would easily fit in an hour. And the heavier you squat, obviously it takes a little bit longer, but because you want a 3 or 4 minute break. But every single one of those days fits into an hour, and you never stop moving. Squats, little band row work, stretch, or foam roll or something in that time. So you're fitting more in and out. You don't have to spend 20 minutes at the end of your workout foam rolling because you've already addressed that during your workout. You don't have to spend 20 minutes doing a rotator cuff routine because you're prone to wonky shoulders, because you've already included that in the workout. So that's what density is. We're putting it all. It's tough because a lot of people that aren't used to it aren't used to the conditioning aspect of it. But also here, I just save more time. I don't have to do 45 minutes of cardio at the end either, because I just went an hour without stopping. My heart rate was averaging, I think, because I've been tracking it, my heart rate averages about 135 to 145 the whole time. And I'm doing a weightlifting routine. I'm not sitting on a treadmill, right? So now I've just killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I got my cardio in, I got my strength training in, I got my volume work in, got my rehab in, got my stretching in, all in the hour. So that's the goal. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's a good place to end it. Of why you do it this way.
Mm-hmm. I do need to get, I mean, I have a website for my company. I need to get that up to date and get a real fitness channel going too. I think keep it separate from politics so nobody can bust my nuts over that. You saw how CrossFit went down, right? Or more specifically, Greg Glassman.
It was woke stupidness, wasn't it?
Yeah, he resisted having any political views added to it. So he, after 2020 stuff was going on, the Floyd stuff and everything, everybody kept asking him about it. He was like, I'm not going to answer that. We're workout program. Come on, we're a workout program. That's all we want to be. That's all we. And I guess he got drunk one night, which he's prone to do, and he tweeted out a tweet that was political and lost his company as a result. And
I've forgotten that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of want to keep real fitness, and I would just resist the urge to get drunk and angrily tweet. So so I'm gonna do that all separate from politics. I got to figure out how to do that. I've got a bunch of workout videos and stuff I can put up, I guess. So
well, that's a good fitness talk and a good place to end it. And then we'll start a part 2 going back to the Dragon Reborn for those who have still stuck around and are going through our reread of that.
You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to look for comments before we started today. So
well, let's pause for a second.
Yeah, we're going to pause for a second. I'm going to look at the comments. We'll see you back at part 2. For everybody else that was just for this ranting and fitness stuff, thanks for watching. No actual advice, just how I do things, and no medical advice on the other thing. No legal advice either, though. I would hate to think that anybody watching this would confuse that, but
that's your own fault if you do.
Be healthier, America.